the meeting of the Williamsburg-James City County School Board. May I have a member certify closed session?
Madam Chair, I certify that to the best of each member's knowledge that the Williamsburg-James City County School Board, while in closed session, only discuss public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements as stated in Virginia law, that only public matters were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered.
Thank you, Mr. Ruffle. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Hunley. Mrs. Aller, please take the vote.
Mr. Riffle.
Aye.
Dr. Cavazos.
Aye.
Ms. Chen.
Aye.
Mr. Hodges.
Aye.
Mrs. Hunley.
Aye.
Mrs. Donner.
Aye. May I have a motion for the approval of the agenda?
I move to approve the agenda as presented.
Thank you, Mrs. Hunley. Is there a second?
A second.
Thank you, Mrs. Chen. Mrs. Aller, the vote, please.
Mrs. Hunley.
Aye.
Mr. Riffle.
Aye.
Dr. Cavazos.
Aye.
Ms. Chen.
Aye.
Mr. Hodges.
Aye.
Mrs. Donner.
Aye. We will move into the organizational section of our meeting. And it is at this point where we move to the organization of the board. I will pass the gavel to Dr. Keever, who will temporarily serve as chair.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. We will start with 4.01, election of chair. In accordance with the Code of Virginia, the board must elect one of its members as chair. May I have nominations for chair of the school board to serve in the calendar year of 2026?
Dr. Keever, I nominate Andrea Donner to serve as chair of the Williamsburg-James City County School Board for the 2026 calendar year.
Andrea Donner has been nominated. Are there any further nominations? Without objections, nominations are closed. May I have a motion to elect Andrea Donner as chair?
I move to elect Andrea Donner as chair of the Williamsburg-James City County School Board for the calendar year of the 2026 calendar year. Apologies.
Is there a second? Ms. Chen with the second. Ms. Aller, would you please take the vote?
Mr. Riffle.
Aye.
Dr. Cavazos.
Aye.
Ms. Chen.
Aye.
Mr. Hodges.
Aye.
Mrs. Hunley.
Aye.
Mrs. Donner.
Aye.
Congratulations, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Thank you. We will now move on to 4.02, election of the vice chair. May I have nominations for vice chair of the school board to serve for the calendar year 2026?
I nominate Kimberly Hunley to serve as Vice Chair of the Williamsburg-James City County School Board for the 2026 calendar year.
Kimberly Hunley has been nominated. Are there further nominations?
Madam Chair, I nominate Randy Riffle to serve as Vice Chair of the Williamsburg-James City County School Board for the 2026 calendar year.
Kimberly Hunley and Randy Riffle have been nominated. Are there any further nominations? Without objection, nominations are closed. We will begin with a vote for the first nomination. May I have a motion to elect Kimberly Hunley as Vice Chair?
I move to elect Kimberly Hunley as Vice Chair of the Williamsburg-James City County School Board for the 2026 calendar year.
May I have a second?
A second.
Ms. Aller, please take the vote.
Dr. Cavazos.
Aye.
Ms. Chen.
No.
Mr. Hodges.
No.
Mrs. Hunley.
Yes.
Mr. Riffle.
No.
Mrs. Donner.
No. May I have a motion to elect Randy Riffle as Vice Chair?
Madam Chair, I move to elect Randy Riffle as Vice Chair of the Williamsburg-James City County School Board for the 2026 calendar year.
I second.
Thank you, Mr. Hodges and Ms. Chen. Ms. Aller, please take the vote.
Mr. Hodges.
Aye.
Mrs. Hunley.
No.
Mr. Riffle.
Aye.
Dr. Cavazos.
No.
Ms. Chen.
Aye.
And Mrs. Donner.
Aye. Congratulations, Mr. Riffle. Chair, 4.03, appointment of the parliamentarian. They have nominations for parliamentarian of the school board to serve for the calendar year 2026.
Madam Chair, I nominate Amy Chin to serve as parliamentarian of the Williamsburg-James City County School Board for the 26th school year.
Amy Chen has been nominated. Are there further nominations? Without objection, nominations are closed. May I have a motion to appoint Amy Chen as parliamentarian?
Madam Chair, I move to appoint Amy Chen as parliamentarian of the Williamsburg-James City County School Board for the 2026 school year.
Second.
Ms. Aller, please take the vote.
Mr. Riffle,
Aye.
Dr. Cavazos,
Aye.
Ms. Chen, Mr. Hodges, Mrs. Hunley,
Aye.
Mrs. Donner.
Aye. Congratulations, Ms. Chen. 4.04, appointment of the clerk and deputy clerk. In accordance with Section 22-1-76 of the Code of Virginia, it is recommended that Ms. Beth Aller be appointed clerk and Ms. Susie Mills be appointed deputy clerk of the Williamsburg-James City County School Board through 2026. May I have a motion?
I move that the school board appoint Ms. Beth Aller as clerk and Ms. Susie Mills as deputy clerk of the Williamsburg-James City County School Board for the calendar year of 2026.
I second.
Ms. Aller, please take the vote.
Mrs. Hunley,
Aye.
Mr. Riffle,
Aye.
Dr. Cavazos,
Aye.
Ms. Chen,
Aye.
Mr. Hodges,
Aye.
and Mrs. Donner.
Aye. Thank you, Ms. Aller. Continuing. 4.05, appointment of superintendent's designee. In accordance with Section 22.1-76 of the Code of Virginia, it is recommended that Dr. Kathy Worley be designated to attend meetings of the school board in the absence or inability of the superintendent to attend through 2026. May I have a motion?
I move that the school board appoint Dr. Kathy Worley to serve as a superintendent's designee for calendar year 2026.
I second.
Thank you, Ms. Chen and Mr. Hodges. Ms. Aller, please take the vote.
Ms. Chen,
Aye.
Mr. Hodges,
Aye.
Mrs. Hunley,
Aye.
Mr. Riffle,
Aye.
Dr. Cavazos,
Aye.
Mrs. Donner.
Aye. Thank you, Dr. Worley. 4.06, appointment of school board members to advisory and standing committees. Prior to the organizational meeting, board members volunteered for committee appointments and are being nominated for the following advisory and standing committees. Daniel Cavazos to the Career Ready Advisory Committee. Amy Chen to the Special Education Advisory Committee. Kimberly Hunley and Randy Riffle to the Policy Committee. Andrea Donner and Randy Riffle to the School Liaison Committee. Michael Hosang to the School Safety Audit Committee. Kimberly Hunley to the Mentor Teaching Program Committee. Is there any further discussion or other nominations? Without objection, nominations are closed. May I have a motion to approve the committee appointments as presented?
Madam Chair, I move to appoint Daniel Cavazos to the Career Ready Advisory Committee, Amy Chin to the Special Education Advisory Committee, Kimberly Hunley and Randy Riffle to the Policy Committee, Andrea Donner and Randy Riffle to the School Liaison Committee, Michael Hosang to the School Safety Audit Committee, and Kimberly Hunley to the Mentor Teaching Program Committee for calendar year 2026.
I second.
Thank you, Mr. Hodges and Dr. Cavazos. Ms. Aller, please take the roll.
Mr. Hodges,
Aye.
Mrs. Hunley,
Aye.
Mr. Riffle,
Aye.
Dr. Cavazos,
Aye.
Ms. Chen,
Aye.
and Mrs. Donner.
Aye. Item 4.07, appointment of school board member to serve on the New Horizons Board of Trustees. May I have nominations for a member to serve on the New Horizons Board of Trustees?
I nominate Michael Hosang to serve on the New Horizons Board of Trustees for calendar year 2026.
Michael Hosang has been nominated. Are there further nominations? Without objection, nominations are closed. May I have a motion to appoint Michael Hosang to serve as trustee?
I move to appoint Michael Hosang to serve on the New Horizons Board of Trustees for calendar year 2026.
I second.
Thank you, Ms. Chen and Ms. Hunley. Ms. Aller, please take the vote.
Ms. Chen,
Aye.
Mr. Hodges,
Aye.
Mrs. Hunley,
Aye.
Mr. Riffle,
Aye.
Dr. Cavazos,
Aye.
and Mrs. Donner.
Aye. Item 4.08, appointment of school board member to serve on the HRETA Educational Advisory Committee. May I have nominations for a member to serve on the Hampton Roads Educational Telecommunications Association Educational Advisory Committee?
I nominate Randy Riffle to serve on the HRETA Educational Advisory Committee for calendar year 2026.
Randy Riffle has been nominated. Are there further nominations? Without objection, Nominations are closed. May I have a motion to appoint Randy Riffle to serve on the committee?
I move to appoint Randy Riffle to serve on the HRETA Educational Advisory Committee for calendar year 2026.
I second.
Thank you, Dr. Cavazos and Ms. Chen. Ms. Aller, please take the vote.
Dr. Cavazos.
Aye.
Ms. Chen.
Aye.
Mr. Hodges.
Aye.
Mrs. Hunley.
Aye.
Mr. Riffle.
Aye.
Mrs. Donner.
Aye. Item 4.09, appointment of school board members to serve on the Superintendent Student Advisory Council. May I have nominations for 2 members to serve on the Superintendent Student Advisory Council.
Madam Chair, I nominate Amy Chin and Ty Hodges to serve on the Superintendent Student Advisory Council for the calendar year 2026.
Amy Chen and Ty Hodges have been nominated. Are there further nominations? Without objection, nominations are closed. May I have a motion to appoint Amy Chen and Ty Hodges to serve on the council?
I move to appoint Amy Chin and Ty Hodges to serve on the Superintendent Student Advisory Council for the calendar year of 2026.
Second, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Hunley and Mr. Riffle. Ms. Aller, please take the vote.
Mrs. Hunley.
Aye.
Mr. Riffle.
Aye.
Dr. Cavazos.
Aye.
Ms. Chen.
Aye.
Mr. Hodges.
Aye.
And Mrs. Donner.
Aye. Item 4.10, approval of amendment to the calendar year 2026 school board meeting dates. The State Code of Virginia, Section 22.1-72 reads, each school board shall hold its annual organizational meeting for the purpose of establishing its regular meeting schedule for the ensuing year. May I have a motion?
Madam Chair, I move to approve the amendment to the calendar year 2026 school board meeting dates and add a special call meeting to the June 20th, 2026 at 4 p.m. to approve personnel actions.
Mr. Riffle, I believe it's June 30th
As opposed to.
as opposed to June 20th.
I'm sorry, June 30th, 2026 at 4 p.m. to approve personnel actions.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I second.
Thank you, Mr. Riffle and Mr. Hodges. Ms. Aller, please take the vote.
Mr. Riffle.
Aye.
Dr. Cavazos.
Aye.
Ms. Chen.
Aye.
Mr. Hodges.
Aye.
Mrs. Hunley.
Aye.
And Mrs. Donner.
Aye. Thank you all. Before moving to the announcements and superintendent's report, I would like to acknowledge Amy Chen for volunteering as the school board representative on the WJCC Schools Foundation Board for calendar year 2026. Thank you. And thank you everyone for taking on these really important positions within leadership and on all of these special boards and advisory committees. It's a really important part of the work that we do as the school board. We will move into item 5.01 on announcements in the superintendent's report. Dr. Kiefer.
Madam Chair, thank you. It seems like just a couple weeks ago we were together for a school board meeting, but in essence it was last year, and we're moving into 2026. So welcome back. Hope everybody had a relaxing break and are looking forward to a sprint and a marathon. A sprint to finish the first semester and a marathon to finish up the rest of the year and finish strong. So welcome back and let's get rolling. Course planning and curriculum fairs. It's never too early to begin thinking about the next school year. Later this month, course planning and curriculum fairs will be taking place at War Hill High School. Our rising high schoolers are invited to join us on the 14th of January from 5:30 to 7:30, and our rising middle schoolers are invited to join us on January 15th. This gives an opportunity for our students in those important transition years to explore academic areas, meet representatives from every subject area, and get a head start on their course selection process for the upcoming year. So we look forward to seeing folks on the 14th and 15th of January at War Hill. Thinking about transitions next fall, perhaps you're interested in FAFSA and the idea of how do you go about applying for FAFSA. So the FAFSA Next Night is scheduled to take place on Thursday, January 22nd, at Jamestown High School beginning at 5:30 p.m. Meet with financial aid experts and get help filling out the FAFSA form and application. We encourage families to take advantage of this important learning opportunity. And finally, later this evening, on the agenda, we are going to ask the school board to consider a resolution celebrating some of the most talented and dedicated people on our team, our principals. Principal Appreciation Week is scheduled in Virginia January 12th through the 18th. However, I think it's important that we celebrate our leaders all year round. We have some amazing folks leading our buildings here. They are pictured for you. And we've even got one in the audience tonight here locally who's going to be doing a presentation with us. I'm grateful for the leaders in our building, and I know our community is as well. My challenge to members of our community is to reach out with a positive note to our leaders and let them know how much they're appreciated and valued. Thank you, Madam Chair. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Dr. Keever. Are there any members who have any reports from any committees? If not, then we will move on to item 6.01, proposed agenda items. The proposed agenda item is the VSBA Code of Conduct for school board members. Every year, we review that code of conduct, and school board members sign that as our pledge around our own code of conduct. So that will be on the next agenda item at our next meeting. We'll move on to 7.01, the kindergarten orientation model. Dr. Keefer?
Madam Chair, good evening again, school board members. Thank you very much. We are pleased tonight to bring forward an update on our kindergarten orientation model, work that sits at the very beginning of our pre-K-12 system and quite frankly has an important impact on everything that follows. As we have talked about before, successful transition into kindergarten is not just about the first few days of school. In fact, it's about setting the conditions for long-term success, academically, socially, and emotionally. Our model was intentionally designed to give our youngest learners the strongest possible start by prioritizing meaningful engagement and careful observation, informed decision-making, and thoughtful planning. You're going to hear an update this evening from Dr. Karen Swan and Ms. Robin Ford. We're excited about this, and we look forward to watching the program continue to expand. Robin, welcome.
Good evening. Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, and Dr. Keever. I am pleased to be joined by Dr. Karen Swan this evening, Principal of Laurel Lane Elementary. This evening, Dr. Swan and I will present an update on the kindergarten orientation model implemented at our 3 elementary schools, DJ Montague, Laurel Lane, and Norge at the start of this school year. I will begin with a review of the objectives for our model. The kindergarten orientation model was designed to support a successful transition, as Dr. Keever said, into kindergarten for our students by providing a comprehensive, structured process that allocated adequate time for children, parents, and guardians to become knowledgeable about the kindergarten experience, time for staff to more fully understand students' needs, and time for school teams and division staff to proactively and more effectively support our students by assigning staff and instructional resources to students using a well-informed decision-making process. This model prioritized meaningful engagement, observation, decision-making, and intentional planning to ensure our students' needs were understood from the start. 3 schools participated in the implementation of the model: DJ Montague, Laurel Lane, and Norge Elementary. These schools were selected based on administrator support for the process and correlation of their school's kindergarten enrollment to the needs of the kindergartners in our school division. The model was implemented over the first 8 school days and organized into 2 phases. In Phase 1, the student experience days, kindergarten students at the 3 model schools engaged in daily learning activities that enabled our staff to observe, assess, and become informed about our students' strengths and opportunities. Varying classroom settings and student groupings during the student experience days supported our students to build important relationships early with peers and staff beyond those opportunities available in a typical classroom assignment process. During the second phase of the orientation model, days 7 and 8, our students did not attend school. Administrators, teachers, and other school staff made informed decisions for grouping and assigning students and collaborated with each other and families to prepare plans to support students' specific needs. Phase 2 concluded with an open house at each of the 3 schools so that students and parents could meet their assigned teachers and visit their classrooms. 6 weeks after the model concluded, staff and parents had the opportunity to share their reflections for the strengths and opportunities of the model as it was implemented this year. I will begin by sharing staff feedback. We invited all staff who supported the orientation model to participate in the survey. Invited participants included teachers, teacher assistants, teachers and specialists representing literacy, math, special education, LEAP, gifted and counseling staff, support employees including office, cafeteria, and custodial staff, and our administrators. 52 staff members provided feedback through the survey. Of particular note, 12 of the 13 kindergarten teachers at the 3 schools responded to the survey. Staff were asked to evaluate their experience with the orientation model. Overall, more than 2/3 of the participants were satisfied with their model experience. The majority of the responding staff characterized the planning and communication to prepare them for the model as effective, and nearly 2/3 of the staff agreed that the model provided time for them to effectively collaborate with their peers. Staff rated the model highest for facilitating their ability to better understand their students' needs and creating balanced classrooms through more informed decision-making. The Parent and Guardian Survey was distributed to the parents of all kindergartners at DJ Montague, Laurel Lane, and Norridge at the same time staff received their survey opportunity. On this slide, we have identified the number of parent and guardian responses to the survey. In all, there were 116 responses provided to the orientation model survey. The level of parent satisfaction with their children's experiences during the orientation model was consistent across the 3 schools. Overall, 70% of the parent respondents reported being satisfied with their children's model experiences. Nearly 2/3 of the parents and guardians were satisfied with communication the division and schools provided for the orientation model. We were also interested in understanding the impact of the non-attendance days on our families. Approximately half of the parents indicated that the non-attendance days impacted their home routines. Approximately 60% of parents agreed that the model supported their children to feel more prepared for kindergarten. We also analyzed student discipline data for the first 6 weeks of the school year at the 3 model schools as compared to the student discipline at those same schools during the first 6 weeks of school last year. At first glance, the comparison of fall 2024 to fall 2025 discipline does not imply a positive impact for the orientation model on student behavior. However, deeper analysis of the data indicates that while there were fewer incidents in 2024, the number of students who experienced challenges resulting in discipline incidents that year was higher than it was this year. The difference in the number of documented discipline incidents may also be the result of the challenge in how student discipline is documented. Over the first quarter of the year, in last fall, elementary schools phased in the process during which teachers recorded student discipline incidents in view. That practice became more standardized over the course of the first quarter last year as more teachers became familiar and comfortable with that new reporting process. Therefore, we are hesitant to draw any conclusions with regard to the model's impact on student discipline at this time. We will examine second quarter kindergarten discipline data for the 24-25 and 25-26 school years this winter to determine if there may be a relationship between the model and student behavior.
An analysis of the open-ended survey question responses revealed themes of model strengths and opportunities. As intended, the model provided quality time for the numerous staff to get to know the students, observe them at various times over the course of the full school day, and in different settings. They understood how they responded to the school setting and planned for their needs. As a result, most staff believe the model provided them with a deeper understanding of all students, resulting in more balanced classroom assignments. Staff also indicated they received consistent communication to guide the model period at their schools. One result in particular stood out in the analysis and reflection of the model, and that was the fact that every child had not one or two, but several staff members who knew them by name, and they interacted with them more than once during the student experience days. There's power in the act of being called by one's name, especially for learners who are all in the early stages of building supportive relationships with their peers and adults who are charged to care for them. From the parents' perspective, the model provided valuable time for them to get to know the staff and their communities and begin building those important relationships. They believe that the model helped ease the transition for their children to the full school day through positive peer and classroom interactions and supported the children to understand kindergarten expectations and routines. Because the WJCC team built this model from the ground up without a similar model to replicate in part, we knew there would be opportunities to learn and improve the model. For that reason, we intentionally launched the model with only 3 schools this year. And as anticipated, the analysis of the opportunities to improve the orientation model identifies division and school-based practices that we can address moving forward. Staff indicated the goal of the model could be met with fewer student experience days. They would like to see more consistency in classroom practices from room to room in each school, and they have ideas to strengthen daily logistics and want more communication about the model. Staff wanted parents and guardians to have the chance to provide feedback, which they did. From the parent perspective, there was interest in lengthening some of the model components, receiving communication earlier and more frequently, understanding the structure of the daily schedule, and there being supports for their childcare logistics.
Overall, the response to the kindergarten orientation model was positive. Informed by the feedback we gathered and powered by the engagement of division and school staff and parents, we plan to implement the orientation model in the 26-27 school year. To strengthen the program and further enhance its impact for our students, we will take the following actions. We will identify 3 to 4 additional schools to join our original 3 schools for the 26-27 school year implementation. We will expand the model planning committee to include parent representation. We will expand the model guide that was provided to the participating schools this summer. Reduce the number of student experience days. Communicate non-attendance dates to families and child care providers in February. Provide information for the model at the Kindergarten Fest event in April, and conduct staff and parent guardian surveys in October 2026 to further evaluate our model. At this time, Dr. Swan and I are happy to answer any questions you have.
And as board members are considering questions, I want to go back to the 3 key words that I've been talking about for the last number of months. From my perspective, this particular model hits all 3. It's student-centered, it is driven by collaboration, and we've applied a very strategic approach. So those 3 concepts were interwoven throughout this, and I'm really proud of the work that the team has done.
Thank you, Ms. Ford and Dr. Swan. I'll open it up to the board for questions or comments. Yes, Mr. Hodges.
So this model is of particular interest to me, as my daughter will be heading into kindergarten here in a couple of years, so I'm very curious to learn more about this. During these student experience days, what sorts of things are the students getting to actually do? Like, how does that differ than what they would see on like a regular school day?
Well, what they were doing during the school day, participating in literacy and math instructional lessons, building community through morning meetings, attending centers, attending lunch. Much of the activities they were engaged in looked very much like the activities that kindergartners at our other schools looked like, because first and foremost, we didn't want them to lose valuable learning time. But we also, the the crux of this model allowed just a significant number of staff to really interact with all of the kindergarten students, and for the students to participate in different groupings of students so that we could see how students not only respond to each other and to adults, to the environment, to the length of the school day, to the transitions that happen during the school day. So it didn't look on the outside different, other than in most of the classrooms in the model schools, you would see more adults in a classroom at one time, because again, they were working side by side with the students and getting to know them and assessing their needs. And I think one of the most powerful takeaways for me personally as I visited the schools was the number of times adults said to me, I know so many children's names already, and it's day 3. And I think when we think about a child and those relationships and how quickly that process launched for our youngest learners, I think that's incredibly powerful.
And then when you were talking about the staff feedback for the model, I was heartened to hear that 12 of 13 kindergartners responded to the survey. But I did have a question about kind of the crosstabs of the staff feedback. I'm curious where those kindergarten teachers fell when it came to this idea that the orientation supported better understanding of student needs. Were they more in the agree or disagree category? Do we have that specific type of breakdown?
The majority of them agreed that the model met their needs as far as helping them to understand their students' needs and then plan for them. I think Dr. Swan can speak about the teachers at her school.
Fully agree. It gave a chance to, I will say, being a kindergarten teacher is tough. It's complex. I mean, you are teaching early learners so many important foundational skills. And so it gave us a chance at the end of each day to be able to have conversations about groupings, understandings, needs. And again, it was power in knowing all of the children and really being able to have their names. So that feedback and being able to help with seeing where there may need to be extra supports, where we could provide some extra feedback and help early on in the early stages, that was powerful.
And then lastly, it seems like the future actions, you all recommend reducing the number of student experience days. Do you have like a target number in mind on how many you would reduce to at this point?
At this point, I think we need to return to the committee of teachers and administrators that we so heavily leaned on for the planning last summer, and enlarge that committee with teachers from new participating schools and pull in parent representation and talk through that a little further before we make that decision. But overall, teachers did feel that we could accomplish that same getting to know the students experience in fewer days. So perhaps 4 days instead of 6. But I think that has to be an informed committee decision driven by the experiences of our teachers and our administrators.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your work on this. This is a very cool idea, and I look forward to seeing how this grows in the years to come.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have a, first of all, I'm glad that it's expanding. Did you do any, just for the viewing audience, did you do anything different for students that had special needs or the ELL students? What kind of support did they have on these days? Because some would have come with IEPs and things like that.
So those were definitely also considerations that were taken at hand. We work closely, for example, with Bright Beginnings in terms of receiving folders and files and information. But for inclusion setting and just pairings, those were things we also took into consideration. And it helped in terms of, okay, this is a cohort that's worked really well together. With our self-contained settings, we also worked through some different pieces with their involvement and collaboration during those days as well.
And there were interpreters on site for some, okay, great,
did,
thanks.
yes.
Any other questions or comments? I was able to go to Norge and talking with that team, and they were saying how the kids were so used to having a number of different adults that they interacted with made them really comfortable to go to any adult if they had a problem or an issue. And so I think from what I heard from the teacher's perspective of that was really different and kind of warming of the kids really felt like they had a village. It wasn't just that one particular teacher.
I love the empowerment of seeing the adults knowing the names of students. When I walk with certain students during the day and call by name, some of the kids will say, "Do you know every child's name at school?" But there's power behind knowing the names. And so it warmed my heart seeing the number of adults who were calling the students by name, literally by day 3. And knowing what those needs were. So that was powerful. We have a kindergartner who comes in every day at lunch and all of us get a hug and a rundown of what the day is, which is special. But it's, again, they feel loved and they know that we know them. And so that's been great. And parents were grateful for the visibility that we had and the communication that they were receiving each day about this is what took place during the day. Here are some questions you can ask your child this evening. This project was done. Have a conversation about this. So those were helpful pieces in the feedback that I received directly from some of our families.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? If not, thank you so much, Dr. Swan and Ms. Ford. It's wonderful to see the evolution, and I think it's just so important as a division. I think I don't want this to be missed, this wasn't something that we picked up from another division and implemented. This is homegrown innovation, and as we move forward in making sure that we're supporting all of our kids, being able to have this homegrown innovation and test and learn is so important. So thank you so much.
Thank you for your support.
All right. We will move on to our next agenda item, which is 7.02, update on school performance and support framework from the Virginia Department of Education.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As Mr. Walker and Dr. Brown take their places, I wanted to make some introductory comments and begin with a reminder for the board and the public about why we're here or how we're here. And Virginia's accountability system has undergone a shift. We've talked about that over the course of the last year. I think it's important for us to continue to understand how we should interpret what the results tell us. With the new unified accountability framework, it was intended to combine both the federal and state requirements into a single system. And the intent is sound, and you get greater alignment and more transparency and consistency across the Commonwealth. I think the school divisions across the Commonwealth had also been waiting until December to receive those new results. In early December, those results were provided to us. Based on our internal initial analysis, we anticipated that 14 of our schools would be identified on track, and one of our schools would earn distinguished designation, and one school would be designated as off track. And we're pleased to share that several of those positive outcomes with you. 13 schools are on track. Jamestown High School was recognized as distinguished, and James Blair is no longer federally identified. What was somewhat surprising to us in terms of the results was that 2 elementary schools, James River Elementary and Matthew Whaley, received federal identifications that we were not necessarily anticipating. We own those results. We know that we can continue to do better, but I don't think those results necessarily are single indicators in terms of what's happening in our schools on a daily basis. So I want to point out just briefly as we get started that in December also, the Joint Legislative Audit and Review Commission, JLARC, released a report. It's an independent General Assembly research arm. Released an analysis of the new accountability system. And their review affirmed that while the framework includes positive changes, there are also some design limitations that impact how schools and results should be understood. There is a significant weight on proficiency and far less of a weight on growth. And frankly, as a result, summative ratings across the framework tend to reflect student demographics much more than a school's specific contribution to learning over time. We'll talk a little bit more about this as we go, but it's important context setting. We will continue to work diligently every day. And Sean and Adam are going to talk about some of the things that make up the results and the scores and some of the things that we're doing to address those. Sean, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Keever. Good evening, Madam Chair and school board members. As a reminder, Virginia's new school accountability model, named the School Performance and Support Framework, replaces the previous model. The new accountability model has three main components for elementary and middle schools: mastery, growth, and readiness. Each component is weighted differently across those three school levels. The scores earned in those three weighted components add together based on a 100-point scale. After totaling a school's earned points, a designation status is assigned to the school: distinguished, 90 points or higher; on track, 80 to 89 points; off track, 65 to 79 points; or needs intensive support, below 65 points. In the final step, all schools in the Commonwealth are then reviewed for possible federal identification. If one or more of the 8 student reporting groups falls below the annual threshold cut score, then that school becomes federally identified, and their performance designation status is reduced one level. In fact, 434 Virginia schools, or 24% across the state of Virginia, received a federal designation. The components within the accountability framework for the 3 school levels can be seen in more detail here, providing the specific weighting of the components by elementary, middle, and high school. For example, on the left, the mastery component for elementary schools is worth 65% of the total, which is where students' SOL scores and English learner progress are accounted for. Student growth in reading and math for grades 4 through 5 are worth 25% of the total, and readiness, which is chronic absenteeism for elementary schools, accounts for 10% of the total. You will notice that the weighted percentage changes to 60% for the mastery component at the middle schools, and then goes down to 50% for the high schools. To provide some additional context and understanding, this slide shows the School Performance and Support Framework results for all K-12 public schools in Virginia based on the spring 2025 school year outcomes. These scores show that 425 schools, or 23%, were labeled distinguished. 774 schools, or 43%, were deemed on track. 400 schools, or 22%, are designated off track, and 213 schools, or 12%, are labeled needs intensive support. These results are drastically different than what we see on the top of the slide, showing 86% of all Virginia schools were fully accredited back in 2024, per the previous accountability system. As Dr. Keever mentioned, the Joint Legislative Audit and Review Commission released a report known as JLARC. This report was about the new Virginia Performance and Support Framework model. It was completed and released in mid-December. The report underscores that elementary, middle, and high schools are measured using different indicators and weights, but then they're scored against the same thresholds, a structure that gives advantages to the high schools. Across the Commonwealth, 65%, or 2/3 of all high schools in the state, are labeled distinguished, compared to only 9% of middle schools across the state being distinguished, and 17% of elementary schools designated as distinguished. In summary, the JLARC report finds that Virginia's new accountability system is definitely more effective and useful than the state's prior system, but noted several refinements are necessary. The next several slides will dive into the calculations showing how an elementary school earned its final designation status. So let's look at this elementary school example together. Each school is evaluated for mastery, which again reflects how many students met the state's proficiency bar on the recent SOL assessments. And remember, mastery is worth 65% of the total pie. It includes additional credit for advanced performance and even gives partial credit for students making some progress toward proficiency. Overall, reading and math SOL test outcomes are each weighted 22.5%, and science and English learner progress account for 10%. Let's look at our example for reading. We had 30 students in grades 3 through 5 score advanced, which earns extra points, 1.25 points per student. 100 students in grades 3 through 5 earned proficiency, with each proficient pass earning 1 point. 49 students just barely missed the proficiency mark and received a fail basic, but still earning 0.75 points per student. And 33 students failed below basic and earned 0.25 points each. Overall, 212 grades 3 through 5 students tested on the Reading SOL test, and those points added together equals 182.5. You divide that by the number of students and multiply by 100 to get that percentage, is where the 86% comes in for that school's reading indicator percentage. You'll follow that same method for mathematics performance, and you'll see that this elementary school performs stronger, earning about 92% for their math indicator percentage. In this example, 65 students tested for the grade 5 science SOL test, earning 61.75 points. Divide that by those number of students, multiply by 100, and we get the 95% indicator percentage. Science performance counts for only 10% of the 65% of the mastery component. For English learner progress, the school had 27 students show progress on their access testing out of a total of 49 eligible EL students, earning an overall EL progress score of 55.1%. However, this school had more than 49 EL students last year, but in order to be counted into this new accountability calculation, the EL students must have 2 consecutive years of access testing conducted in the state of Virginia. The school is also evaluated for readiness, and at the elementary level, that's based on chronic absenteeism rates, the percentage of students who are missing more than or equal to 10% of the enrolled school year. 51 students in grades K through 5 out of the 470 total were identified as chronically absent, which gives you a rate of 10.85%. This elementary school had 212 students complete the SOL reading test last year. 125 students in grades 4 and 5 demonstrated various levels of reading growth. 30 students exceeded their expected reading growth, earning 1.25 points each. 30 students met their expected reading growth, earning 1 point each. 44 students fell below their expected growth, but they still received 0.5 points each. 21 students did not meet expected growth, therefore earning 0 points. So 89.5 total growth points were earned. Divide that by the number of students and the 100 for the percentage. You get 71.6% for that growth percentage. Identical to the reading growth, 125 students in grades 4 and 5 demonstrated various levels of growth on the math SOL test. However, the overall growth points earned for math is 99, which is higher than what was earned for reading due to more students exceeding and meeting expected math growth and less students falling short of the expected math growth. Stay with me, this is the tricky one.
So just as we've gone through this, right, so I think herein lies part of our challenge as an organization is working to help determine the critical aspect of teaching and learning on a daily basis. But in the background, these are the pieces that are helping to determine how we are determined on the accountability scale. Keep going, Sean. Thanks.
Okay. So mastery. Let's look at reading performance together. 212 students in grades 3 through 5 completed the SOL reading test, remember earning 182.5 total points. Divide that by the total number of students to get the percentage rate of 86%. and then multiply it by that weighted percent of 22.5, which then gives you the index value of 19.3691. Well, follow that same process for math, then for science, and then for EL progress. You then take the 4 index values on the far right of the chart, enclosed with the green dash marks, add them together for a grand total of 55.1, which you can see in the dark navy mastery box on the far left. Okay, that's the mastery part. Now let's talk about student growth. So remember, 125 students in grades 4 through 5 demonstrated various levels of reading growth. We follow that same calculation process to determine the growth out of the total number and then apply the weighted percentage of only 12.5%, considerably less on the weighted percentage, to get the index values for reading and for math. The chronic absenteeism rate, again, we said that was calculated at 10.85% because there were 51 students identified as chronically absent. Apply the 10% weighted rate to get the index value. You take those index values surrounded by the green dash marks, add those together on the far left for mastery, growth, and readiness, and that school's final performance category total out of 100 equals 82.874. Therefore, that school is designated as on track because it fell in the 80 to 89 point range. So the elementary school earned 82.9 points, placing the school in the on-track designation. However, if a school has one or more underperforming student groups, then the school's overall designation status is reduced one level, which in this case reduced it from on-track to off-track.
May I ask a question?
Yes,
Sorry.
ma'am.
So that was because of the EL or?
We're going to get into the example that shows how we got there. All schools' data is reviewed, this final step, across the Commonwealth annually. And Title I schools and non-Title I schools can potentially be federally identified. So first, the state identifies the lowest performing 5% of Title I schools across the state requiring comprehensive support. So if we were to look at the visual on the left, and let's just imagine the lowest 5% in the state are the 15 schools that you see on the left. The state then identifies the top performing school of those 15 schools and uses its scores as the threshold or cut score to measure all other elementary schools against when looking at the student reporting groups. Got those 15 lowest in the state as our example, and then they pick the top of the lowest. And they use its scores as the threshold benchmark. So if we look at step 1 to see the overall framework score, here it is, that top performing school out of the lowest group. It had an overall framework score of 71.8. That's the threshold cut score. The next step is to compare that framework score for each of the 8 student reporting groups against the cut score of 71.8. So let's look at our example school and go down the list to see if any of the student group scores happens to be below the threshold cut score of 71.8. Yes. We see 2 student groups falling below the 71.8 cut score. Hispanic is below at 71.7, and students with disabilities is below at 71.3. So therefore, we then have to look at those 2 student groups. The others had a cut score that was above 71.8, so they're taken off the table for federal identification. So now we're only looking at Hispanic performance and students with disabilities for federal identification. So step 2 in the chart at the top shows the cut scores for reading, math, and science. And now you have to compare the students with disabilities performance and Hispanic performance against those threshold cut scores. Both Hispanic and students with disabilities reading performance are lower than the cut score of 71.3 for reading. So we have to keep going. Next, look at the math cut scores of 74.51. The Hispanic math score is 75. It's higher now than the math cut score, so the Hispanic student reporting group is clear and they are now off the table for federal identification. The students with disabilities math score of 67.94% is still lower than the threshold cut score, so we have to continue on by now looking at science performance. The science cut score is 84. Let's go back one. Is 84.25 for science. We come down and we see that Hispanic is already off the table. We don't have to worry about them at the moment for federal identification. Students with disabilities comes out at 80.76, lower. Therefore, this elementary school students with disability subgroup is identified federally as Targeted Support and Improvement, otherwise known as TSI. And it'll have a specific focus on improving students with disabilities performance in reading and in math and in science. So that threshold cut score is like the mystery score that we do not know. We were waiting and waiting and waiting for that to be released by the VDOE because that was the final piece we were unsure of for federal designation.
And that cut score changes, so it
Annually.
changes year over year.
Yes, sir.
Based on the top score of the lowest 15.
Yes, sir.
Is that right? Okay.
Yes.
Now, that is not necessarily even talking about the scenario related to the increase in cut scores over the course of a 4 or 5 year window that has been approved by the State Board of Education for the ongoing years. So we're just looking at this model this year. I'm sorry, Ms. Donna, I know you had a question.
Yeah, so, and I before I ask my question, I'm going to open it up because I think it's a good place to pause.
Okay.
If the board has any questions at the moment. So for the TSI, so the state tells the federal government which schools are identified, or?
So this new model has really braided together the state, the old previous model, which had state criteria for accreditation, and we also still had federal pieces that were in play behind the scenes, and it braided the two together. So when each state submits their ESSA plan for approval, this was part of it with this new accountability model. And so therefore then, when that cut score is released from that top performing school out of the lowest across the state, every school then, Title I and non-Title I, elementary, are rated against that for the 8 student reporting groups.
So in essence, it's part of Virginia's ESSA plan
Yes.
that this designation was added.
And each state gets to create their own formula.
And then it has to be
Figure that out.
approved at the federal level.
Correct.
And so if, let's say, Hispanic had gone all the way, let's say they were lower in reading and math, but they hit it on science, then they would be off the
They
table.
would come off the table for federal identification. That's not to say that the schools should potentially be concerned there and be progress monitoring those students, because they just barely skated by.
Yes, Mr. Hodges.
So am I understanding this correctly that these identified groups that are missing the cut scores, essentially they only have to hit the cut score of one of these different categories to get basically taken off as federally identified?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
I think our challenge, though, is as we plan forward, is that there's not necessarily a target to sail for other than we know we need to get better. And I think
Right.
that's in the previous model there was a number that you wanted to work towards, day in and day out, because you knew if you could get to this number, you would be in a decent place. And so one of our challenges is, I think, personally, and I think as we've talked about organizationally, is the ambiguity yet specificity of the system. And so I would really encourage the board to look at the JLARC report just from the perspective of, and I think I sent it to you maybe in the middle part of December, but I would encourage you to look at the JLARC report from the perspective of having conversations with members of our legislative team who I think have indicated a willingness based on the JLARC study to ask the state board and to ask the Virginia Department of Education to make some modifications. Because I think that we want to get better as an organization. We want to get better as a state. We want better for our students. The way we are held accountable for that, I think, also needs to improve.
Yes. As Dr. Keever mentioned, in the prior model with accreditation, we knew those set numbers. We knew 75% is what we needed to hit at a minimum for English reading. Every year, we knew for math and science it was 70%, and we worked towards that. Previously, there was a component in there called the R10, which is a reduction in the failure rate by 10%. That showed that a school was making progress in reducing that failure rate. All of those things are gone. So we have to look at it completely different through different lenses. So this Joint Legislative Audit and Review Commission, or JLARC report, was completed and released in mid-December. Dr. Keever sent that out, and very interesting, read that. It's about 70 pages. It's linked here in the presentation for you, but it is quite interesting. It finds that elementary, middle, and high schools are measured using those different indicators, but again, they're scored against those same thresholds, a structure that clearly gives advantages to high schools. We previously shared the discrepancy between the numbers of distinguished schools. The researchers wanted to better understand which factors have the strongest relationship with the school's overall summative scores, those scores out of 100 in the accountability model. So they ran an analysis, basically means if we look at all possible variables that might influence school performance, which ones explain the most variation in school scores? Well, the table that you can see here lists the top 15 variables that were found to explain the largest share of differences in school performances across the state. The higher the dominant statistic, the more strongly that factor is associated with differences in scores. JLARC found that schools with higher poverty rates tend to have lower summative scores, and this relationship is stronger than for any other factor measured on this chart. In layman's terms, if you want to predict how a school will perform on Virginia's summative scores, the best clue is the percentage of economically disadvantaged students. School level and student demographics come next, followed by staffing and enrollment, which have smaller influences. So, we've been identified federally for 2 elementary schools. How do we get out of it? That's the first question. What do we have to do? Well, there are no specific exit criteria for getting out of the federal TSI identification. Our 2 schools can exit after 1 year, as long as none of those 8 student reporting groups score below the top school within that lowest group in the state. As we improve, so may those schools, which means the threshold cut score changes each year. Essentially, it's a moving target. As Dr. Keever has stated many times this year, let's be strategic, collaborative, and student-centered in all that we do together for our students. So now that we have hopefully a slightly better understanding of how those 2 schools were federally identified, you might be wondering, okay, what's next? While we are awaiting those official next steps from the state, we haven't been sitting and waiting. We have several items already in place. First, you should know that all 16 of our schools conduct a thorough review of student outcomes and other multiple data points, and then draft an annual school improvement plan. At the elementary level, each school has a literacy goal, a numeracy goal, and an attendance goal. And some schools may also have a science goal, which those 2 elementary schools do. Those goals are reviewed by the Department of School Leadership to ensure alignment to our division's strategic plan and any state expectations. We've already held our first quarterly update meeting with each of the schools. Dr. Kiever was present, and representatives from other departments such as Student Services and Curriculum and Instruction attended. Schools shared their goals, their action steps, and the various forms of data that they're using for progress monitoring. We have follow-up meetings scheduled for early February, which is essentially the end of the second marking period, and we'll meet again in mid-April, third marking period. Next, each elementary school's master schedule this year embeds a daily 30-minute block for literacy differentiation and a daily 30-minute differentiation block for math. This is when you will see, when you're visiting schools, teachers working with small groups of students, while interventionists and tutors either push in or potentially pull out working with identified students. One of the outcomes of the Virginia Literacy Act expanded the VALS testing, the Virginia Language and Literacy Screening System, which was formerly known as PALS. They expanded it beyond grades K through 2 and for those select third grade students. It now also includes grades 4 and 5 students who did not meet proficiency on their previous reading SOL test. Altogether, currently, right now in WJCC, we have 1,332 K through 5 elementary students, or 28% of our elementary kids, with a reading plan that was developed specifically in partnership with their parents, the school, teachers, and the interventionists. These plans are implemented, monitored, and those identified students receive weekly additional literacy instruction tailored specifically to their needs. And annually, we implement tiered staffing ratios across our 9 elementary schools, ensuring smaller class sizes in grades K through 2, and for the schools with a higher percentage of economically disadvantaged students. For example, the current James River Elementary K5 class size ratio is sitting right now at 18-1. And Matthew Whaley Elementary's K5 class size ratio is sitting at 20-1. As a reminder, our high-quality instructional materials that were approved by the VDOE are in place for all elementary students. We are in year 2 implementation of Benchmark Advance for our core literacy instruction, and year 1 implementation with our new math core curriculum called KIDM. Beyond the core curriculum, we're excited to also have SPIRE. That's an approved literacy intervention program supporting deficits in word recognition, and it's paired with the ability to monitor those students' progress over time. Additionally, we now have Steps to Advance to better support our identified students with disabilities and English learner students. And we're continuing to use UFly for word recognition instruction in grades K through 2, which also provides a progress monitoring feature. We feel very fortunate to now have these high-quality instructional materials for core instruction and supplemental instruction. And we also realize it takes time. It takes time to train our instructional staff to use these resources with their students and time to implement it. None of this would be possible without the support from the Departments of Curriculum and Instruction and Student Services. These folks provide training, coaching, modeling. They attend collaborative planning sessions. Whatever is asked at the school level, they're there to make it happen for our students and our staff. And now I'll be quiet, and Dr. Brown will join us for the next few slides. Dr. Brown.
Thank you. I decided to take out percentages and equations, if that's okay with you. So, through the November school improvement meetings with school-based teams, the division identified both priority needs and potential action steps to better support students with disabilities, along with students exhibiting the need for increased supports. Through Title VI-B grant funding, the division has been able to post for three early intervention behavior specialists to support all 9 elementary schools. These 3 positions, in addition to the existing 3 behavior specialists, are designed to provide proactive, targeted support for students demonstrating emerging behavioral needs at the elementary level specifically.
These specialists will work alongside school teams to implement early interventions, support consistent practices, and address concerns before they escalate. At the elementary level, schools continue to express a need for more direct behavioral supports. As such, in response, the addition of temporary behavioral support positions at 4 designated elementary schools have been approved. Based on projected attrition savings, these 4 behavioral support positions will be funded for the remainder of the school year. These positions will allow the division to pilot expanded interventions and provide more immediate school-based support. Beyond providing targeted support at the elementary level to address behavioral needs, WJCC continues to identify current supports and training needs that help our students with disabilities. This includes strengthening collaborative planning between special education and general education teachers to ensure alignment with grade level standards and appropriate targeted supports. It includes the need to ensure that students with disabilities have access to all tiered interventions and receive specially designed instruction outlined in their IEPs. To monitor implementation and impact, monthly progress monitoring meetings will be held with curriculum and instruction, special education, and school-based instructional teams to review data, adjust strategies, and refine supports as needed. Parents, guardians, families, and community members play an important role in supporting our community's children to become skillful, motivated readers and writers. Just before winter break, we launched new information and resources under the English Language Arts tab on the WJCC website that will help stakeholders more deeply understand 2 essential components of our division's literacy plan: the State Literacy Assessment Virginia Language and Literacy Screening System, known as VALS, and our K-5 Core Literacy Curriculum Benchmark Advance. Visitors to this website can also link directly to the vast collection of documents, videos, and websites curated specifically for parents and guardians by the Virginia Literacy Partnership Office at the University of Virginia. By selecting the Benchmark Advance button on our webpage, parents can quickly access information about their child's current unit of literacy instruction, including critically important details for the knowledge students are building through their daily instruction and practice. With another click, parents can view the home activity calendar for each unit. Every calendar provides 9 ideas for exploring the unit's enduring understandings at home or in the community, and these calendars are provided in English and Spanish. Our schools are aware of the data and understand this designation does not change our daily work, but it does sharpen our focus. Accountability matters, but our work is driven by students and not labels. Our commitment is unwavering: strong instruction, inclusive practices, and meaningful support for all learners. Working together, we will make a difference. That concludes our presentation, and we're happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you so much, Mr. Walker and Dr. Brown. I'll open it up to the board for questions and comments.
It was earlier said that this is going to take time.
Yes, sir.
Can you define that?
Time, I think, with our school improvement plans, information we received about 4 o'clock today from the state with links to training and so forth. But here's what we do know. Our schools know the data. They know their students, their needs. They're not sitting and waiting. They've already formed the intervention groups. Specialists, interventionists are providing the support already. We're not waiting for more information from the state. And teachers are using these approved materials. So I think it takes time, yes, to see the results, but we're also not sitting and waiting.
Is it right to say that perhaps the division now doesn't have a goal, but just wants to overcome a minimum?
I would say we still have a goal. We still have the target that's in Elevate to 28.
Right,
There's no question that that's our target. And I think that as I think more about the designation of the label, I want to maintain the focus on the 28% of our students right now that have reading plans.
Correct.
And the idea that we are providing additional assistance to help those students move off of the reading plan and then show proficiency on the reading SOL. So I think that there are multiple steps in terms of our process, but the goal remains we want to see our pass rates continue to improve. No question. And we have that marker in terms of 85% by 2028. I would like to exceed that before 2028. We've talked about that in this room before.
Yes, we have.
So part of our reason and rationale for bringing this tonight was that the results were released and the designations were released in mid-December. We knew the SOL testing numbers, but the designations are a new factor for us and provide, from the state's perspective, additional support. What that additional support looks like, we are going to be excited to learn about halfway through the year, frankly. But the main thing is the student-centered responsiveness each day in our classrooms from our teachers. And so I don't want that message to get lost, is that our teachers are working incredibly hard. Our administrators and support staff are working incredibly hard each day to support our students. We know what needs to happen, and that's a learning process that occurs when the students are with us. And then how do we broaden, which is why I'm really glad that we demonstrated additional resources that we're making available to our families in the community sphere around resources that are available to help support things when those students are not with us in front of us in the school in the evenings.
Yeah, I think you guys have recognized that in the past, that, family participation is extremely important, if absolutely necessary, and the fact that you are really trying to get this goal, and I'm still hoping that we get that goal.
Yes, sir.
Yes, Ms. Hunley.
So when do we get our next updated report, or do we wait again until December of next year to?
I think that's a fair question, Ms. Hunley. I think we will have a sense of SOL performance into the summer. We get the scores as the test windows close. We have some opportunity with administrators in June and July to look at what those score results are. The performance designations related to the performance framework, I'm not sure whether that happens faster at the state level this next year or not. There is some continued discussion around growth measures and how growth will be determined. I don't feel like we know today how growth will be measured in terms of student performance. I think that's still in flux. I could be wrong, Sean, I don't know.
You're correct.
Okay.
It is in
So
flux.
there's an example of, there's a percentage, I think, depending upon what the level is, there's a percentage of, we're not sure how it's going to be measured. So I think it's probably fair to assume that at some point in the fall or early winter, we will know what the support designations are for this year.
Yes, Mr. Hodges.
So this Virginia framework now, the JLARC study, as Dr. Keever mentioned, found that there were some inconsistencies in there. Do we know if there's any potential tweaks to this framework upcoming based on some of that feedback, or does it seem like this framework is going to stay as is for the time being, or for like the foreseeable future? Do we know that?
I would say the framework is here probably for the foreseeable future, but I'm hopeful. I think other educators across the state are also hopeful that some potential refinements may happen within the framework to tweak it.
And some of those could be legislatively driven.
Yes.
As I remarked a little bit earlier in terms of the superintendent and finance officer conversations over the last day and a half, part of the presentation that we received was around the JLARC report, and I believe that there is some desire legislatively to reach in and ask for some tweaks, which would be helpful. I think there also, in a change of administration, sometimes there are going to be natural shifts in how the state board views things, as well as how the department leadership views things. So that's not going to change necessarily our day-to-day focus on the students in front of us.
Mr. Riffle.
This might be a simple question, but I noticed that we have a chart that tells us like fully accredited and then versus like the framework. How is fully accredited different than the framework? Because now we're kind of harping on this new framework, but All of our schools are fully accredited, which is something still to celebrate, but maybe to note this a bit more.
Sure.
We've done this we've talked about accreditation in the past, don't get me wrong.
We can.
Yeah.
So, and Sean did a great job at one point in another presentation that we did talking about accreditation is getting credit for something, and accountability is something that's counted. And so the accreditation pieces are related to 130-ish checkoffs. Did you do this? Did you do that? Do you have this? Do you have that? And that has the determinant in terms of whether or not we're accredited, and thankfully all of our schools are accredited. The accountability piece is really driven by student performance and issues related to that. So we are thrilled, as we should be, that all of our schools are accredited, and we want to maintain 100% accreditation with our schools.
Right. Thank you, Dr. Keever. And I just mentioned that because I think we heard Sean or Mr. Walker mention this little phrase, in the past, which is helpful. But it's not everyone's. Their attention is going to be on this for a little bit. I think maybe Mr. Hodges mentioned it a bit. This might be the first JLARC study that the General Assembly might fully look at. A 70-page document only that they're pretty mad at JLARC. So this is something that's kind of a branch of government they don't truly control, which is the Department of Education. So I think there's a thought that they care a lot about how education is viewed in Virginia, especially coming out of the year where Virginia was the best state for business and education was the number one factor in why they were chosen. So I think this is a high mark for the state. I think it's important that we have a new target, and it is very steep slope, I got to be honest, from the last framework. But it is important that we have a new aim. I know it's definitely a difficult road, and I don't think it's very common for educators to be saying like, well, the school board just loves these new changes. Like, I'm not a fan of it, I got to be honest. But it is important that we have a new mark to hit, right? And I think Dr. Cavazos tried to mention this in the past. It's like, this is, like, what is the goal now, right? And it's not different for us. I mean, I trust our building educators. I trust the people who are outside this room that were on this division every day. And then, of course, our students to get their job done. So, this is just a gut check, I think, to an extent. And we're excited to see how we kind of play into this in the next year. And I'm looking forward to those factors that we can, get the supports to our schools that we know James River and Matthew Whaley have, historically needed in the past, and it's not really different. So it's just more how do we keep continuing those resources down the road. So thank you for the presentation, and let us know how we can be helpful. I mean, I just want to see our students succeed, and it's tough to put it in those those formulas, and I appreciate you reading through them. Because it was really complicated to see them talk about it even during the DOEs. The members on the board of the DOE struggled to articulate what you would kind of present to the public today. So thank you very much.
Yes, Mr. Hodge.
Yeah, and I think, kind of piggybacking off of what Mr. Riffle said, I think it is worth noting that despite the two elementary schools who have been federally identified, that in terms of on track percentage-wise, WJCC is above the state average on elementary schools being on track. Same with the middle schools as well. 100% of our middle schools are on track right now. So I think the two elementary schools identified are going to draw a lot of the attention, and there certainly is work to be done there, but I don't think we should let that overshadow the otherwise across the board really good success stories happening at our other schools. Just wanted to throw that out there.
That's a good point. Thank you.
I do have one question. What has been communicated to the families at James River and Matthew Whaley about these results?
Communication has been shared with the families at both schools and with the staff at both schools.
And how are we framing that with them? Because I could imagine as a parent seeing these and not knowing what to think about the school and the school that my child is going to.
Off the top of my head, I don't remember the exact language, but I think what and we'll share with the board what we sent to the two school communities, but it was, this is the designation that the school has received, and this is how we're approaching it as an organization and how it's being approached within your school with your school staff. We'll get that to you this evening or tomorrow.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Any other comments or questions from board members? Well, not, thank you so much, Mr. Walker, Dr. Brown.
Thank you.
And for walking us through
Brian.
some new math.
Nothing like it.
We will move on to our next section 8, action items. Our first action item is 8-01, approval of personnel actions. May I have a motion?
Madam Chair, I move to approve personnel actions as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Riffle. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Hunley. Ms. Aller, please take the vote.
Mr. Riffle.
Aye.
Dr. Cavazos.
Aye.
Ms. Chen.
Aye.
Mr. Hodges.
Aye.
Mrs. Hunley.
Aye.
Mrs. Donner.
Aye. Our next action item is 8-02, approval of minutes from the work session on 12/16/25. May I have a motion?
I move to approve the minutes from the work session on 12/16/25 as presented.
Thank you, Mrs. Hunley. May I have a second?
Second, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Riffle. Ms. Aller, please take the vote.
Mrs. Hunley.
Aye.
Mr. Riffle.
Aye.
Dr. Cavazos.
Aye.
Ms. Chen.
Aye.
Mr. Hodges.
Aye.
Mrs. Donner.
Aye. And our next action item is 8-03, approval of resolution R-1-26, Principal Appreciation Week. May I have a motion?
I move to approve Resolution R-1-26, Principal Appreciation Week as presented.
Thank you, Mrs. Chen. Do I have a second?
Second, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Riffle. Ms. Aller, please take the vote.
Ms. Chen.
Aye.
Mr. Hodges.
Aye.
Mrs. Hunley.
Aye.
Mr. Riffle.
Aye.
Dr. Cavazos.
Aye.
Mrs. Donner.
Aye. We will now move into section 9, board member comments. I will start with Mrs. Chen.
I just want to say Happy New Year. It's great to be back. I'm glad to be here. Welcome to Mr. Hodges. It's wonderful to have you with us and to be part of our team. I'm excited for this new year, and I'm looking forward to and privileged to continue to serve as our school board representative on the Special Education Advisory Committee. And looking forward to Mr. Hodges and I continuing with my participation in Dr. Keever's Student Advisory Committee. So I think that's next week, right? So excited for for that to get started. And those are both like monthly meetings that I really look forward to, and I'm happy to update the board throughout the year. So just looking forward to all the work we have ahead of us. And yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Ms. Chen. Dr. Cavazos.
Yes. Dr. Keever has stated that he has a personal goal of obtaining from each graduate their career objectives. And of course, the responses will vary and will probably fall into one of three categories: college-bound, the career technical, and the military service. The major focus of the division efforts appear to be with the college-bound student, with an increasing focus on career technical training, and finally, the military service option is receiving more attention. I would like to encourage the division to increase more money in staff towards the career development needs of the non-college bound student.
Thank you, Dr. Cavazos. I'm going to go to Mr. Riffle.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you, Madam Chair. So I want to say Happy New Year. Welcome, Mr. Hodges, and congratulations to my colleagues for their appointments and their new positions. So not much else to say. I'm excited for the school year. I'm a little disappointed in the framework and stuff, how it's going out, but it's a new horizon and dawn in Virginia coming about. Lots of changes for the different secretaries and boards and commissions across the state. I'm interested to see how much of an impact it makes here and where the rubber meets the road in school division. So I'm excited to continue to work for our students and work with our educators and the board in the room here. So thank you all.
Thank you. Mrs. Hunley, I'll go to you next.
So I have 3 pages today. One thing that I really valued, one time Mr. Riffle and I got to have a session where we invited the community in to see, to ask questions and also to tell them how, the board functions, because a lot of times we felt we had the community felt we weren't transparent or there were things they didn't understand. So I know that I moved my phone to my lap as after the organizational meeting because there was a lot of pings. And I just wanted the viewing audience to know that there has always been an organizational meeting. We've done that yearly. It's not just because of an election. We have to have a new chair, have a new vice chair. And there's always been a jockey for positions. That's nothing new, and that usually happens in like December. We actually call each other, are you interested, are you interested? And so there is a misconception that I did want to clear up. Some people think that there should be an order of ascension where you move from this position to this position to this position. That's not the way this works. There's no set for years of experience or seniority. Really what it does come down to is votes. And sometimes people jock for positions because they're interested in the position. Sometimes people will do it because no one else would. Sometimes people are encouraged to. And then sometimes, I feel in this case, it's for political advancement. But that's nothing new either. This is something that's happened on boards across the state, nation, and things like that. What I've always struggled with is, and my board knows this, is are we nonpartisan or are we political? And they have always encouraged me. I mean, politics is involved. And so as of today, I definitely am pleased to tell you that I will not ask that question anymore. Even at our retreats, the elephant was always in the room. That was the elephant in the room for me. It's no longer in the room, and I'm very pleased with that. And I really appreciate that my board, we do at retreats and when we get together, we find out what works for you. How do you like to communicate? And my board has always been very good because they know I do not like surprises. So this was not a surprise for me tonight, and I don't want anybody out there to think that it was. We all knew going in what the votes were going to be. Politics did not crash this board. It just touched down lightly. I still wanted to go through the process because I believe votes are important. Every one of us, all 7 of us, have a right to our vote. And every aye does not mean you win, and every no does not mean you lose. And I don't want anyone to feel bad about a vote because it is our right, and that's what we do. It's the will of the board. And that's one thing I learned my first year. It is the will of the board. I'm excited also to serve on the Teacher Mentor Committee because we have a lot of new staff coming and they need support. and I'm happy to be able to help in that effort, being a former educator of 36 years. I'm also happy to be on policy. I've always been intrigued by policy. We go over policy and I always wanted to know, how did you get to that point? So I am excited about that. It's up close and natural for me. Most importantly, this is my second time at the rodeo. And when I raised my hand that day that I was sworn in, for the first time it dawned on me, as I had my hand up and she was having me read, I don't have to serve on a board. But because 6,374 people voted for me, I get to serve. And I don't take that lightly. I get to serve. And then there were about 200 people that had write-ins, and I know someone said that half of those were probably as a joke. But I believe somewhere in there is somebody that would like to, when my term is up, serve. And so with that, it's my choice, and I like that. And I choose to serve. I choose to always keep kids first and elevate to 28 strategic plans, support that with student achievement at the forefront. I don't inspire to go anywhere else like I know my parents served 32 years on board of supervisors. That's not an aspiration of mine. Just for me, I just want to serve. And want to welcome Mr. Hodges for his willingness to come and serve. We have a great team. And I would also like to say congratulations to Madam Chair, Ms. Donner, and to Vice Chair, Mr. Riffle. And they should all know, my board should know, and also I know Ms. Chin knows as parliamentarian, I am going to be a team player. I am going to always bring joy and love and positivity. That's just what I do, because I believe in the amazing things we're doing. And I so wish before my term is up that we hit that premier status. And I'm always going to do this, no matter if I sit here or there, because I believe in WJCC and I believe in the power of we. And I just want to say thank you for we're not going to be distracted. We're going to stay strong, and we're going to move forward to do great things for students. And I'm glad to be a part of that. That's my comments, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mrs. Hunley. Mr. Hodges.
I will keep mine pretty brief. Happy New Year to everybody. As the new guy, I feel like I'm obligated to say that I'm just happy to be here. But I am genuinely really excited and honored to get the chance to work with every single one in this room on behalf of all the students and the staff here at WJCC. And I think that we're going to do some really great things in not just this year, but in the coming years as well. And then I do want to conclude with a little PSA. We are in the middle of a really bad flu season right now. People are getting really knocked down over this year's strain. So make sure to wash your hands, mask up and stay home if you're feeling sick, and just make sure to take care of yourself out there. It's pretty nasty out there, and I know that with a daughter going through preschool right now, it's everywhere. So.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Hodges. I think the the flu has definitely run through. I know it went through our household, and when I went to urgent care, they're like, "Which middle school?" And she was like, "Yes, I've seen a bunch of those kids." So it is definitely out there. I would just like to reiterate, welcome to the board, Mr. Hodges. We are excited to have you here, and I am impressed that you spoke up at your first meeting. I was very quiet because I was terrified and could not figure out what was going on and how to even get into the conversation. So you're way ahead of many of us for when we started. I also want to thank the board for entrusting me with being chair for this year. I think as Mrs. Hunley said, we've had 3 years of everyone kind of picked their spot and we just voted in, and we didn't have multiple people for, running for a position. And I think that the fact that we did really talks to the strength of this board. Raising your hand to be in leadership is really hard because it elevates you to more criticism, to having to really think through everything that you do. And the fact that Mrs. Hunley and Mr. Riffle both raised their hands and put themselves out there to say, I want to lead, and then to have their colleagues, vote on that, I think is just, it's so courageous. And many people get chosen to serve on a board and have the privilege, as Mrs. Hunley said, and they sit back and they don't take that leap of being leadership. And it's easy to criticize from the sides, from not being on the board, but to put yourselves out there, I'm just really grateful that both of you have done that. And I think the also strength of this board and of other boards is I've heard the stories of different coalitions and people jockeying for positions and trading out, well, if you do this, then I'll do this. And those boards have also, you see them outside of this, they're all friends, even after all of that. And I know that the relationships on this board are very strong. And so I know that each of us will find our place of where we contribute and the strength that we each bring, because we each are so different and have such a different perspective. And I think that is why our board is so successful. And whenever we go to VSBA and we might say like, oh, well, this thing happened. They're like, have you watched other meetings? We are a very high functioning board. And I really look forward to that continuing. I will reverse a little bit into last year, and at our last meeting, we celebrated Sarah, and we didn't have a time to talk about some of the things that we were able to do. But I do want to highlight two things on the rewind. Is one, I was able to go to James Blair Middle School, had their band concert. And it's amazing to hear from where they start in 5th grade in band to then where they get to in middle school as 6th graders and 7th graders in advanced band. And then once you hear the beautiful music in high school. And many of these kids don't have music lessons outside of what they get in the schools. But the fact that we have such a strong arts program, I think, is a real testament to what we do. And it was actually wonderful that evening because we had both an elementary school, the middle school, and the high school band teachers all there, and to kind of see that continuity. The second thing I would like to chat about is our Mrs. Chen and I visited Norge Elementary School, and one of the highlights was our teacher of the year there, Coach Patrick. He does a Home Alone obstacle course for the kids, and it was the coolest thing. He had the buckets that swing, and he had them going through tunnels, and you could look at it and see all the different parts of the movie, like hockey, the rope swing, and I just, when we think about the different ways that our teachers and our educators touch our students, that to me was amazing of, the thoughtfulness of that. And it's become such a tradition. And that was the week, if you recall, there was a bunch of snow days. And he worked with those other teachers in the building to make sure that the kids that missed gym, at the beginning of the week, still had the opportunity to do this. So I just want to shout out one of the shining examples of the ingenuity and the innovation that our teachers are doing every day. And I'm looking forward to the back half of our year. It's the beginning of the year, but kind of the back half of our school year as we forge forward. With that, we will have our upcoming events. So 10.01, we have a special education advisory committee on January 14th at 5 p.m. in room 108 at the school board and central office. Career Ready Advisory Committee, January 21st at 3:30 p.m. at the Lafayette High School Media Center. 10.02, our upcoming meetings. We have a budget work session on 1/13/26 at 5:30 p.m. in room 300 in the annex at the school board. A budget session on 1/20/26 at 4 p.m. at room 300 in the annex at the school board. Closed session on 1/20/26 at 6 p.m. room 200 in Berkeley Middle School. Regular meeting and public pre-budget public hearing. Regular meeting with the pre-budget public hearing on 1/20/26 at 6:30 p.m. at Berkeley Middle School Auditorium. Closed session on February 3rd at 4 p.m. in room 300 in the annex at the school board. And work session and action items on 2/3/26 at 4:30 p.m. in room 300 in the annex at the school board. The agenda items for are set for our next regular meeting. And with that, we are adjourned.